What is up, guys? Welcome to another Straight Edge Wrestling Top 10 list. This week we're looking at the top 10 talkers in the history of professional wrestling. Let us know your top 10 talkers in the comments below, and if you're new, please remember to like and subscribe to this channel. Now, professional wrestling is not all about what happens between the bells. The ability to cut a promo is essential to getting any wrestler from good to great. Coming in at number 10 on our list is the incomparable Macho Man Randy Savage. Now, Randy Savage is one of the most iconic personalities in the history of professional wrestling, with a voice that will resonate with generations to come. His signature and hyper-excited promos made it impossible to take your eyes off of him. He's one of the most unique and everlasting characters in the history of pro wrestling. He had the look, the work, and the voice. He truly was the whole package. And now taking our number 9 spot is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. So some individual promos, they last a lifetime, and they're ingrained in the minds of every single wrestling fan. Dusty's legendary Hard Times promo is just that. He was the original everyman wrestler that the average wrestling fan could resonate with, and that's why his promo work stuck with everyone who heard him. Now, Dusty is spoken about with such reverence by everyone who talks about him. He's looked at as sort of the godfather of NXT, and for good reason. He exuded personality and connected with every person in the audience. He's left a lasting legacy that stretches long beyond just him. His 2 sons are killing it in the business as we speak, and he is the foundation of the current NXT system. Now, in our number 8 spot is Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, Jake Roberts is unlike any other promo on this list. He was cool, calm, and collected at all times. He never needed to shout, never needed to get angry or lose his composure. Jake would calmly dismantle his opponents verbally while staring directly down the barrel of the camera. Jake has been lauded by his fellow wrestlers for his psychology. The Undertaker has just recently talked about how it was Jake who he would go to talk about character development. After a long and troubled time in his life, Jake the Snake is now back on our screens in AEW and is remaining one of the best promos in the entire wrestling business still to this day. And moving on to our number 7 spot, we have the voice of a generation, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Now, Heenan is one of wrestling's most iconic personalities and a voice recognizable to all wrestling fans of the 1980s and 90s. He was the mouthpiece behind some of the greatest villains in wrestling history, standing by the side of Andre the Giant in the build-up to his clash with Hogan at WrestleMania 3. Not only was he great at talking for his clients, though, the Weasel was also one of the best on the commentary booth of all time. The duo of Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon is legendary, as were some of his all-time most famous calls, including calling Marty Jannetty a coward for jumping through the barbershop window. In at number 6, we have got the great one, The Rock. Before he was the biggest star in the world, The Rock worked his way up the WWE totem pole by exuding charisma, charm, and personality. Coming into the WWF as Rocky Maivia, he was nothing special. But when he was let loose on the microphone, man, everything changes. He became a one-stop catchphrase machine and made himself a household name throughout the entire world when he began using the third person and churning out legendary saying after legendary saying. At number 5 on our list, we move on from the great one to the self-proclaimed best in the world, CM Punk. Like Dusty Rhodes, certain promos last a lifetime, and CM Punk is responsible for a once-in-a-generation promo. However, Punk is much more than the pipe bomb. He was regularly dishing out killer promos against Triple H, John Cena, or as part of the Straight Edge Society. Punk's ability to think on his feet and never be outwitted allowed him to always be the star of the show when he had a microphone in his hand. Everything about a Punk promo made you believe he truly meant whatever he was saying. No script and no bullshit. CM Punk was able to stand toe-to-toe with some of the greats, Triple H, Chris Jericho. He was able to outwit them, outsmart them, think on his feet, and never be outsmarted. In our number 4 spot is the Texas Rattlesnake himself, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, Austin is without doubt one of the biggest stars in the history of professional wrestling. However, much like Rock, Austin came into the WWF with a lackluster gimmick and was given a manager, Ted DiBiase, to talk for him. And he was told that he wasn't to speak, that he was to always have a mouthpiece. Thankfully for all wrestling fans, when he was finally allowed to be set free on the microphone and cut his legendary Austin 316 promo on Jake Roberts at King of the Ring, he became untouchable. Austin was unscripted and unfiltered, and the fans hung on every single word of it. He may have been a man of few words at times, preferring to stun and go, but when he let loose on the microphone, nobody could touch him. Still to this day, the legacy of Stone Cold surrounds arenas throughout the world with the "what" chants everywhere you go. Moving on and taking up our number 3 spot is John Cena. You don't get to the heights that John Cena has in the wrestling business without having the charisma and mic skills to back you up. He may be a controversial figure in the professional wrestling business, but from rapping and rhyming as the Doctor of Thugonomics to standing toe-to-toe with The Rock in a war of words, Cena has proven himself time and time again to be one of the best in the history of WWE. In a scripted landscape of the recent wrestling business, Cena has always managed to break away from the regular formula and entertain the audience. He is able to switch on a dime from his kid-friendly shtick to a serious, ruthless promo against the likes of Brock Lesnar. This is why Cena has been one of wrestling's greatest talkers for over a decade and has managed to, quite like The Rock, start making his transition toward bigger things in Hollywood. And in our number 2 spot is the ever-evolving, ever-changing Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has been a constant force in wrestling for over 2 decades and has managed to reinvent himself time and time again and managed to stay on top of his game. His last run in WWE saw him do stellar work with Kevin Owens and Dean Ambrose, but he was a top-tier promo nearly 30 years ago with his list of 1,004 holds in WCW. In 2020, he continues to be on top form as the face of AEW and doing phenomenal work behind the commentary booth as well with Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. At nearly 50 years old, Jericho doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. Like The Rock, Jericho has become a one-man catchphrase machine with a little bit of the bubbly, becoming an internet sensation just a year ago. But moving on to our number 1 spot as the person we believe to be the greatest talker in the history of professional wrestling is none other than the Hot Rod, Roddy Piper. Without the Hot Rod as the most hated heel in the business to go up against babyface Hulk Hogan, who knows where the wrestling business may have gone. The very first WrestleMania was built around the mouth of the Hot Rod. Roddy had a gift of talking people into the seats and making him the most despised heel in the wrestling business. He was quick-witted and could run rings around any person that stood up against him. His Piper's Pit talk show is a model that is still being used today in just about every wrestling company. And it was that which was the setting for some of his most crushing verbal assaults on his opponents. Not only where he hit the coconut over the head of Jimmy Snuka in a verbal tirade, but nobody in Piper's Pit stood a chance against him, because just when they thought they knew the answer, the Hot Rod, well, he would go and change the question. And those are our top 10 talkers in the history of professional wrestling. And please do let us know in the comments down below who you would put in your top 10 talkers of all time list. Please, if you're new here, like and subscribe to this video and head on over on Twitter and follow us there at SEW_podcast. And we will see you next time for another Straight Edge Wrestling Top 10.